All right, good deal. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's month service presentation of maintaining and adding value to your home. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the A Month of Service collaboration. Also included is the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, the Earl Carl Institute, Texas Legal Services Center, Harris Central Appraisal District, the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, and Lone Star Legal Aid. And together we make up A Month of Service. And A Month of Service is a collaboration of all of our organizations coming together, bringing forth a lot of our initiatives, pooling resources and information to provide to the communities that we all serve. We decided several years ago to collaborate in an effort to reach more people, to create a larger impact, and to try to get as much information out there to the community as we possibly can. So we are providing for you today as part of the Neighborhood Recoveries Initiative to do the post-home ownership information, or provide post-home ownership information to community members such as yourself in regards to maintaining and adding value to your home. So basically, what does all home maintenance actually look like? What does it include? What do you need to do to help prolong the longevity of your home and to make it stay in the best possible shape as you can? Or in addition to that, what does adding value actually looks like? What actually adds value, monetary value, and pecuniary value, as I was informed about what actually adds that value, and could potentially any renovations and updates and reconstruction that you do to your home actually add appraised value that could also impact your annual property tax bill as well. But we're going to go into all of those details. Today we have Mr. Clifford Joe with GI Inspections, who's going to be joining us in just a moment. But to start out, we have Ms. Nikki Collins with Keys Real Estate Services. She's a licensed appraiser who's going to be giving you the information first about what adds value or adding value or praise value to your home. So without further ado, we are going to get started, but first I did need to make sure that I pointed out that information that we do provide is for educational purposes only. It is not to be considered any professional or legal advice. We do encourage you to reach out to our legal service partners if you find yourself in need of any civil legal assistance. And also, if you feel the need to reach out to any of our presenters, their information will be provided for you to actually also utilize their services if you like as well. So um, we are recording our session. We also broadcast live on our social media platform, but we do want you to be as engaged as you'd like to be. Feel free to type whatever questions that it is that you have into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask your questions directly of the presenter following their presentation. If you are joining us on our social media platforms, then please know that I am monitoring those, and you can type your question into the comment section as well. I do know that a couple of you emailed me a couple of questions prior to or during your registration, so I'll make sure that that gets read, or those will get addressed at the end of the presentation as well. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Ms. Nikki Collins with Keys Real Estate Services. Ms. Nikki.
Good afternoon. I always have to look at the clock to see what time it is to
It's
know whether
morning or
it's
afternoon.
morning or afternoon. It is 1 o'clock, so it is afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. Let me throw my PowerPoint up here.
I have to stop the screen. Oh, there it goes. It was hidden.
And here we go. Okay. My name is Nikki Collins. I'm a certified general real estate appraiser, which means that as long as I feel comfortable doing it, I am legally allowed to appraise it. Comfortable meaning competent. I'm a second generation real estate professional. My mom is a real estate appraiser and broker, and I'm a real estate appraiser and agent. I initially went into IT, and then, every 5 minutes there's a tech bubble burst, and I got caught in the one around 2000. When did I graduate from undergrad? 2000, 2002, 2003. And then decided that I would get a real estate master's degree. I never ever intended to go into real estate because it was what my mother did, and I didn't want to do what she did. But I've been a real estate professional now for more than 20 years. And surprise, surprise, I really do love having the opportunity to help people make the best decisions about generating wealth for themselves and their families. Okay, so um, what's it worth? That's the big question is when we're doing something, we really, if we get down to brass tacks, we like it, it's nice, it's pretty, but what is it worth to me? So in investment terms, the question is actually what is the return? So we're going to look at four specific things, and these are the things we're going to kind of point back to for the whole time. The first thing is our return on investment, or ROI. We're going to talk about cost versus value. We're going to talk about the two different types of value, pecuniary value and personal value. So when we're looking at return on investment measures the profit you have made or could have made on an investment. So if it cost me a penny to make a widget, right? I've made something and I went to buy my materials and I examined my time, and all in, I've generated a penny's worth of cost to make whatever this thing is. And so I'm going to go and sell it now for 2 pennies. That second penny, that's my return. I've made a 100% return on my investment, right? So now let's say that I made something and it was $1, right? And so it costs $1 to make it. When I went to sell it, I made $1.10. So I had a 10% return on my investment. So it's just how much of the goal is always to recoup what you spent and then get a little more, right? Sometimes you're not able to recoup what you spent, or sometimes you're not able to make a little more, right? You're just able to break even, right? Sometimes we just, if you just let me break even and let me make what I spent, I'll be happy. And then we have those occasions when, you might have to go have do some meditation to kind of get you back to center, because not only did you not make any profit, you also did not recoup what you spent. So you can have no return on your investment. You could have a positive return on your investment, or you could have a negative return on your investment. So let's look at these two things, cost and value. In those examples, the cost was what you put in, right? So when you made that 1 penny widget, the cost was 1 penny, but you were able to sell it for on the open market. Always, when we're talking about selling, we're talking about on the open market, right? To um, the entire corner of people who are interested in that widget. So to those people, it was worth 2 cents. So that was the value. Now, that's an easy value to see because that's dollars and cents. And that's that pecuniary value. Those things that you can measure by dollars and cents, but that's not the only value. We mentioned earlier briefly personal value. That's the ooey gooey value, right? You'll have a septuagenarian, a 70 or an octogenarian, 80-year-old man. And when he was 16, his dad had a fill in the name of some kind of car, because that's not really my judge. So fill in the name of some kind of car that was like, oh, all the teenagers are going wild over this car way back when. But what was just a regular car way back then is now a collector's item if it's in pristine condition, right? So, but this man just remembers so fondly the times he had riding with his dad, working on the car. The dad used to tell him stories of how when he met the mama, you just have all of this nostalgia. is now tied to this vehicle for this elderly gentleman. So now when he goes out and he's looking at cars, he sees this car. It is in trash condition, right? Awful condition. It's going to take a significant amount of work to get this to the pristine conditions at the car. But this man is just so in love with this car that he's willing to almost pay anything personal value, right? He's willing now to attach money to his feelings. So the money is not in the value in the car itself, it's the value of his memory. It's the value of being able to say, oh, my dad and I would have. My mom would have loved. This reminds me of my daughter. Oh, my dog looked like this. So it's those things that you can't, we say all the time, it's priceless. And not priceless as in it's so expensive you don't have enough money to pay for it. But I can't put a number on my feelings. And so sometimes I make bad decisions. And so our goal is going to help you to not make bad decisions when you're making decisions regarding your real estate property. Now, one of the things that also impacts us, and this has been a really big thing since the pandemic, actually, is the rising cost of money, labor, and materials. So there was this wonderful time during the pandemic when, okay, so just bear with me. This first part is not going to sound wonderful. We got to get to the wonderful on the back end. When people couldn't go to work, when industry was at a standstill, and so nobody was spending money because everybody was scared. Nobody was sure of how this thing was going to go. And so we were all staying in. We were saving, we were budgeting, we were not spending. And as a result, markets overall were struggling. So what did the government do to help? They dropped rates, right? Y'all remember the good old days of the 2% interest rate? We are paying for it now. But the good old days of the 2% interest rate, money was out here. You could go and buy things that your mind had never even envisioned. So we have people who really had a $200,000 house, budget, are now buying a $300,000 or $400,000 house because at 2%, you could afford something that you could not afford at 5 or 6%. So people were buying. You couldn't, there was no work going on. You could hire someone to come and do work on your property for little of nothing. Materials were not moving. So you could purchase materials for little or nothing. It was a time to be alive. And then, right? We are now living in the and then. And then once the barrel started moving, once the wheels started turning, and we started on the road to recovery, we had to repair the damage that was done during that time. And the way that you repair that damage is to increase the price of everything. So now that interest rate that was 2% had gotten as high in some places as 8 or 9%, right? Because we're correcting the market. And so now the cost of money is expensive, and the cost of money, we see it more easily if you go and attempt to get a loan of some kind, right? You're going to go buy a car, you're going to go buy a house. Even our credit card rates are just insane by comparison to what they were 6, 7 years ago. Um, it's more easily seen when you look at your personal direct finances, and you can't sometimes see the impact that it is having all along the supply chain all the way to you until, let's talk about it this way. So you're getting ready to put cabinets in your house. Well, you want maple cabinets. The maple's got to come from somewhere, right? So now we're back on the farm, the tree farm, where they were growing the maple trees. And that man has to take out loans to meet his payroll but his payroll loan rate has increased beyond what it used to be. Guess who's going to pay that cost? It's going to go to his supplier, who he's sending that wood to. So the wood gets to the supplier. They're going to start to manufacture the cabinets. But that wood was more expensive because he had to eat that first person's interest cost. He also has to pay, he has a loan on, the cabinet maker has a loan on the space, his warehouse where he builds the cabinet. His loan went up because of the interest rate. Guess who's going to eat that cost? Home Depot, when they get those cabinets, right? I don't know if I can say company names. The big box store, when they when they get the cabinets, are going to have to eat that interest cost. So guess who then gets to get that interest cost? By the time those cabinets get to you, every hike along the way has been passed to you, which was why when I tell the story often, we did the renovation, we added some space on so that we could just to give us more space because I have 900 children, six, but six, 900, same thing. We added some space on, and we had started planning in the beginning of 2020, right? When things were bleak and work and materials were plentiful. Well, we had a neighbor who had a fire, and we did the general contracting work on their repairs. So that put our project on the back burner. By the time our project came off the back burner, the cost of materials had increased 900%. And it is not just exaggeration, because this one piece of material that it was $4 when we started planning and we started writing our budget was $36 when we got ready to purchase. But by then we had to carry forward because the roof had come off. See what I'm saying? So you have to be prepared that even though your return on investment may be based on one thing, allow room for things to change. The cost of money can rise and fall. The cost of labor can rise and fall. The cost of materials can rise and fall. But I think that most professionals will tell you, do not expect it to fall back to where it was. It may correct some, but don't expect it to fall completely back to where it was. So we have this investment, and we know that we're trying to decide what we want to do with this property. Do I sell? Do I keep? Do I lease? What do I do? How do I know what to do with this property sometimes it may be my personal property, it may be an investment property. We'll talk about that a little further down the line, but how do I know what to do right now? So the first thing we like to consider is whether we're in a seller's market or a buyer's market. And what does that mean? How do we identify it? How does that impact our return? So if we are in a seller's market, let's go back to the beginning of 2020. I mean, to the beginning of the pandemic, when they could not get anything to move. Those people who were still brave enough, because that's what it took when we were all unsure, to be in the market, sellers were just glad to have anybody on the property, right? So they were making concessions, they were lowering prices. What do you want me to add to it? I'll do whatever, because nobody's come through that door when we need to get this property off our books. So money was a little more expensive because they weren't sure how this thing was going to go. And so it was harder to get a buyer in. Then, as the rates began to drop and things began to change, we were in a raging seller's market. When money becomes less expensive, you have more buyers, right? And supply and demand is clear. If you have more buyers, then you have properties. The sellers will eat steak. Okay, so this was when you would have a property and it was hanging on by one nail in the corner of the roof line. That's all that was holding this property together, and it would sell for $500,000. and 28 people saw it, and there was a bidding war, and people are throwing cash. They're not even getting appraisals. We don't care what it costs. We don't care what it's worth. Just I need it and I have this money. Seller's market, right? Inexpensive money, lot of buyers, few properties available, not because I mean we only have a finite amount, right? We only have as many as are built. And you get to a point where you can only build so fast, and it's a decent property, right? So we're limited by the constraints of what we can make available on the market that is safe and sound. So on the flip side, how do we know a buyer's market? We're pretty much in one right now. Money is expensive, right? Money is expensive. And it wouldn't be so bad that the interest rates were so high, except prices are also high. So we have fewer sellers in the market. My sister is also an agent, and she was telling me, she was like, "Oh, I have listing clients who won't even take a VA loan. They don't want to deal with all of the issues of a VA loan." Well, guess what, honey? Those clients are taking VA loans right now. They're taking VA loans, ABC loans, DEF loans. They don't care. They just want, do you have a buyer so I can move this property? So if money is expensive, then that means that fewer people are going to be able to qualify, right? Because just because I can qualify for a loan, if it doesn't give me an amount for a home that meets the need of my family, then I'm not going to buy right now. So I may be able to buy, but not willing to buy. And that's kind of the situation we're in right now. So that shows that we're in a buyer's market. So now we have buyers who are going into properties and they're saying, no, I only like a kitchen if it has white cabinets and glass doorknobs. And you're having sellers say, we will paint it all white and put in glass in order to do whatever's necessary to secure that buyer. So how does this impact our return? In a seller's market, the seller's return will be greater, the buyer's return is often less. And it's the inverse in a buyer's market. The buyer is going to be able to get more for less money, and the seller is going to have to do more in order to get less money. So we want to keep those things in mind as we're preparing to make a transaction. Then the other thing that we like to consider is timing. I just like the phrase "time is of the essence" because it sounds like we need to be staying on the ball. It just means that whatever we say in this contract, we're bound by the timing that's there. But it sounds like we need to be moving. So the questions that we ask ourselves are, how long will you own the property? Because there are some changes that you can make to a property where you will never see this money back. You will never see it back. But if you're going to be there long enough to get the personal value out of it, you may not care, right? We'll talk about some specific things that people always ask about and how those things, the timing really does make a difference. Also, am I living in this property? Is this my homestead? Or is this an investment? Things that I'm going to do and something that I plan to live in for a long time should be different from those things that I'm doing in a property that I intend to make some changes to in order to sell it. Will you enjoy the fruits of your labor? If I really enjoy this expensive Persian carpeting, I don't know if that's a thing, okay? But so if I really enjoy this Persian carpet I saw on TikTok and I want to install it in my house, but nobody in my neighborhood has ever even heard of this stuff, much less do they have it. But if I'm going to be here for the next 10 to 15 years to enjoy it, then I'm the only one I have to please, right? I don't have to consider how this will fare on the open market if the only market that these changes have to make happy are me. If I'm my market, then I can get what I want as long as I'm going to be there long enough to make that expense worthwhile. So we want to so now let's talk about when we're making changes, what are they? What are they? Because a lot of times, and this is full on appraiser speak at this point. A lot of times we do things and we're like, oh, I know this is gonna bring me some value. This is gonna make a big difference, and it won't. And the reason it won't is not because it was unnecessary, but because it was deferred maintenance. This is why I like to go after Joe. But y'all will hear about deferred maintenance in a minute. Okay, so deferred maintenance are those things that you do to your property just to keep it at the status quo, right? Someone will say, oh, well, that's brand new air conditionings, right? I just put in brand new air conditionings. And then my question is, so you have a 20-year-old home. How old were the air conditioning units you replaced? Oh, they had gone out. It was time. Well, that, my friend, was deferred maintenance. Did you move to the newest, latest, greatest, air conditioning units, the ones that you can see from space or whatever they doing in the fancy stuff that they charge too much for? Did you do any of that? Oh no, I just replaced it with something similar. Deferred maintenance. All you've done is maintain your property. And maintaining your property is important so that you don't lose value, but it may not necessarily increase your value. So let's talk about investments that increase the value. Um, so if we always talk about keeping up with the Joneses, right? Well, in real estate, to a certain extent, it is important to keep up with the Joneses. This house, I am in my childhood home, right? Thank goodness for good parents. And this house was built in 1982. So it is a 40 plus year old home. And if you came into the home, you would estimate from finishes, not from, because it's got closets like a 1980 house, and I got daughters, so y'all pray for me. But if you would look at the finishes are on trend. They are what's happening now. We are currently in our fourth or fifth iteration of finishes. Because we are in real estate, we'll go sometimes to new construction homes and see what they're putting in. We have no carpet in our home. Why? Because in mid to upper range homes, they are no longer putting in carpet. We didn't realize that. We did it because of allergies. But they're not putting in as much carpet largely for that reason. But there are just some things that you do to help keep up. So when the house was first built, it was fancy for its time, right? So wood panel everywhere, not the stripe panels, but like the sheets of wood with the crown molding and the molding, the picture frame molding on the wall, fancy, fancy stuff. The good linoleum in the kitchen and the Formica on the name brand laminate countertops. It was fancy, fancy. Well, that Formica is gone. It's been replaced with granite, right? Really, probably time to do a granite upgrade, but we'll hold off because some other things. And the Formica's gone. We're in our one, two, three, four, fifth. We're in our fifth set of tile, right? We initially did the white tile. When everybody moved to the no, we didn't do white tile first. We did the flower tile first, where when you put the tiles in and they met at the corner, it made the little flower pattern. It was blue with white, with white flowers, pink in the center. We were fancy, honey. When we took that vinyl up and put that tile down, we knew that we had arrived. Well, after a little while, that went out of fashion. So then we pulled that up. My daddy did not pull it up. My daddy put that tile on top of that other tile. So we had two layers of tile, one white tile, because that's when they moved to white tile. So we had a white tile throughout that he had just put on top of the blue tile. Then we got the wood look tile that was like 2 feet by half a foot. And we pulled up the old tile, thank goodness, and put down that tile. Now we're in, I missed one somewhere. I can't remember what we did next, or that one I missed. But now we're in the 4 foot long wood tile that has the groove and stuff that makes it feel like it's wood this time. So it's just those things that help it to increase the condition rating in an appraisal. It says how old would we think this property is? There are two types of age. You have the actual age, right, which is 40 something years old. Then we have something we call the effective age. And in the effective age, we're looking at the useful life, right, of the components of the home. The house used to have galvanized plumbing. We took that out. We put PEX. Why? Because galvanized leaks over time. It rusts, breaks down, leaks over time. So now that PEX is supposed to last longer. Um, we went out, pulled out all of the old ductwork, put in brand new ductwork. It's just those things that, and a lot of the really good capital improvements, you can't see. So you have to keep good records, good notes, good history, and say, I know you may not be able to see this, but those things that will cause you issues down the line, we took care of those things in this older property. So it's not just replacing a leaking piece of galvanized with galvanized for the capital improvement. It's saying this piece of galvanized, I'm sick of dealing with it, pull it all out, put PEX in. Right. So it's those things that elevate it and take it to the next level, to that not take it beyond just what you had before. That's how we tell the difference. So let's think about a buyer. Let's think like a buyer. When we make changes to something we're preparing to sell or to lease, most of us, and I say us because I'm guilty, I've been guilty of this too, buy as if we're gonna live there, right? I'm getting ready to sell my house, but I'm gonna purchase things for this, in preparation for selling as if I'm gonna continue to live there. You're not gonna live there. So that means that you shouldn't buy what you like necessarily, right? You should be trying to prepare for a broad market. You want to be as neutral as you can, as general as you can, in order that buyers are able to see themselves living in your space as opposed to seeing you living in your space. These two pieces of tile right here, one is Carrara marble and one is granite. And they're cut from weird pieces of the slab. And when I initially saw these at a stone store, the one that has the striations in it, I thought were marble, right? Because that's the way I'm used to seeing that veining run through marble. But it was in fact granite. And the one I thought was granite because granite can have that little pebbly look, that was marble. And so sometimes we're like, oh, I want to make sure I have this in the home because it's so fancy and people will like it. Well, it may be fancy and people may like it, but will they pay in a way that will allow you to profit from the change that you'd make? If no one else in your neighborhood has Carrara marble, then that means that buyers coming to your neighborhood are not expecting Carrara marble. And if the house next door is less expensive than yours, and the only difference between your house and the house next door is that yours has Carrara marble and theirs has granite, they're going to buy next door. Do you get what I'm saying? You don't want them to say, oh no, this price is ridiculous and I don't need that. I can go and live with this. So you want to think like a buyer about what would be important to them as opposed to what is important to you specifically. Then I want you to think like an appraiser. This is how we appraise. This is how we come to value. We look at what's happening in the homes around you. That's why I say think about what your neighbor would do, what's happening in your neighborhood. Keep up with those Joneses. Don't keep up with the Joneses from the subdivision from the luxury. You're in a mid-range subdivision. Don't go and try to figure out what they're doing in River Oaks because the people who are shopping in River Oaks are not coming to shop in your mid-range subdivision. So those things that are important there are not important here. By the same token, there are some things that might be really important in this mid-range subdivision that luxury custom built subdivision does not give a hoot about. So you want to think about what's happening in the homes around you. You want to make sure that you are keeping up with what's happening in your specific market, because there are buyers at every level. You want to make sure you don't miss the buyers at your level, quality or quantity. You want to make sure that you don't forsake quality trying to buy bargain basement, right? You want it to be quality, but you also don't want to equate good quality to I spent $1 million, because that's not always true either. You want to make sure that you get the best you can within the budget you created, right? And you want to make sure that for all projects, you say, this is what I am willing to spend. We'll talk about the budget way down on the end, but you want to make sure that you stay inside of what you intend to spend. Don't go way above what you intended to do, hoping that if I spend a little more, I might get a little more. Because if the value isn't there, it won't make a difference what the cost was. You don't want to over improve. If no one else has custom bamboo floors, don't put that in. Don't put that in. But you also don't want to under improve. If you all have not had vinyl floors in your area since the 70s, do not be the first one to lay that sheet vinyl back down. It is not going to go the way that you think. And you want to keep up with how the market is moving. If you can see a trend towards a certain thing, and you don't necessarily want to be the first person to bring that trend to your area, but definitely if you can say, oh, on these last 3 or 4 houses that sold, they have been doing such and such, which I've seen over there. So yeah, this may be something that we need to do too, to make sure that we get the results that we want. So what are some low cost changes? Now that we have all of the theory and all of the logics, let's get to what should we do. The lowest cost change ever is cleaning up. I spent today with my daughters cleaning out the closet in our utility room. It has changed the whole feeling when you walk into that room, that things are not just falling out on you out of the closet, that you can look in there and see where things are. Sometimes it's just making sure that the walls and baseboards have gotten a good scrub, so you don't have that little light layer of living that likes to show up on our baseboards. That if you have marks on the walls, that you get the walls painted. That if your kids were playing and somebody hit an elbow and went through the sheetrock, that we've repaired that sheetrock. That door that's hanging off the hinges, that we've repaired or replaced that door. Just those things that don't take a whole lot of cash to do, but that when you do them, they work wonders. Every now and then, I like to have someone come in and I tell them to do a move out clean at my house, right? Which means they're going to come in, they're going to scrub everything from ceilings to floor. And it's just worth it, because I feel better living in my house when it looks like nobody lives here, because a lot of people live here. And so it's just those things give a person who is viewing your property the sense that they have taken care of this place, and it didn't take a lot for you to get to that point. Now, how do we sell the needle? How do we really move the needle if we want to have big impact? When we look at our appraisal form for the purpose of lending, there are, in the section where they're asking about condition, whether it's a new construction or if it's something that was constructed 2 or 3 years ago or has been completely redone, then it's just, is this one up to date? So the first one is C1 if it's new. C2 says that it was done in 2 or 3 years, or a person has done a total renovation on it. When we say total, we're talking about electrical, plumbing, sheetrock. It's hard to get that C2 unless you have worked, or it's fairly new. C3 says it's current. This is what houses in this area looks like. It's not new, but it's current. C4 says we can live here, right? It's not, they haven't done all of the upgrades and stuff, but the house is in good shape. They've done good maintenance. You don't have to worry about the roof caving in on you. C5 and C6, we're in trouble. We need to do some work. For C6 for sure, because C6, you shouldn't even be living in it. But C5 says you can live in it, but you maybe shouldn't be living in it because there's some major items that need some work. So in that section where they're asking us about condition, there are only two rooms. They ask if there are only two updating questions they ask. When was the last time that the kitchens had been updated or renovated? And when was the last time the bathrooms had been updated, renovated, or remodeled? That's it. They don't ask you if there's new carpeting. They don't ask you if there's fresh paint. They don't ask you anything else except for when was the last time the kitchens and bathrooms have been done. And that really, for the average appraiser, will guide a lot of how we do the condition rating. Because even if you've painted and you've changed floors and all of that, and then I walk into the kitchen and it's that cooking, those cooking elements from the 70s, and it wasn't on purpose because you were building a retro kitchen. I know, no, this is more than likely lipstick on a pig, and I'm gonna look a little harder to see whether it really was lipstick on a pig, to see whether you said when we were getting ready to have the meeting, I said, let me go and put something on so I look like a grown up. See, because I wasn't put together until I knew I had this meeting. And that's sometimes what people do when they're getting ready to sell their property. It's not really put together. They just gonna slap a little stuff on it to make it look like it's put together. And that's what we don't want buyers or people who are preparing to lease something that you're going to offer for lease to believe. Floor and decor. Be neutral. Just because you enjoy bright, bold colors, deep, dark, rich colors, if that's not on trend, if that's not on brand, if it's going to push you in too small a segment of your market, don't do it. Keep it neutral. Let people be able to see, oh my goodness, I'm moving two different things. I'm sorry. So you want to make sure that when people see the changes that you have made, that it is appealing to them, not necessarily appealing to you. Now, these are questions that I get asked often, so I'm going to move through this page briefly. Is it worth it from a value standpoint? Solar panels. We are still very much oil and gas country, right? And so a lot of the green efforts in this market don't have enough of a track record for an appraiser to assign a value to it. And all appraisers use historical data to justify what we say value is. And we don't have enough data to support solar panels being a value add. What we have found in our market, however, with regard to solar panels, is that there is not even consistency in the same company from one person to another person putting solar panels in. So the solar panel company's job is to get you to spend as much as you can, right? As much as you are willing to. And because that is how they are being sold, we can't say solar panels cost this, solar panels are worth that, because two households may have the exact same panels for the exact same company, but the salesperson may sell them for a massive difference between the two just because someone was willing to pay more. What we are finding is that when people have these contracts for solar panels, because you pay them off like you would a car, a house, or or a long-term installment loan, is that lenders are requiring sellers to pay off that loan before they will let you transfer that house. So you should be mindful of that timing part if you are considering solar panels. Will you be there long enough to pay that contract off, or will you be able to pay the contract off in the event that you have to or that you want to sell your property? Generators. Also haven't seen it impact value yet, but it is one of those personal value items. We just put one in. just because, and I mean, in all these years, we've never really lost power for more than a few hours, even in some of the larger storms. But we just, for mine's safety, for mine, to keep us soothed and calm, we went ahead and put a generator in. And we, as appraisers, have no expectation that that's going to move the needle on our appraisal if we had to get one. Swimming pools. We enjoy swimming pools, and swimming pools are not a necessity per se, but it's not bad in the greater Houston area to have a swimming pool. But we do tell everyone that there are certain submarkets in Houston where water features are expected, right? So it'll either be a pool, or it'll be a fountain, or it'll be a pond, or it'll be something in certain segments of the Houston market. In most markets, though, it is not, it is clearly a personal preference. It is clearly a personal preference. And the market will not subsidize your personal preference. And so oftentimes we will have someone who tells us, well, we put this pool in 3 years ago and it was $75,000. And I may value that pool and give them 15 for it. Why? Because insurance is increased when you have a pool. Liability to the homeowner is increased when you have a pool. Everybody doesn't want a pool. The market does not, if a market does not require that pool, then I can't treat it like the market requires that pool. The same thing goes for outdoor kitchen. We love them. They are nice to have, but in most segments of the market, it is not even something that people expect. And so that means that it's not something people are willing to necessarily pay extra for, or that it would be a deal breaker if it was or weren't there. And so those things are difficult to assign value to. So if you're preparing to make some changes, to make some edits, to do something with your property, what do we want you to do? Make a plan. Make a plan equals make a budget. Know what you want to do and know what you want to spend. Know how much you're willing to spend. And I always tell people to know how much you're willing to lose, right? Because we talked about that positive return on investment, no return on investment, negative return on investment. If you break even or find out that this probably wasn't the best thing to do from a value standpoint, what are how much are you willing to sink into this project? And if you're going to be there a while, then it may not feel like a sink, right? You may really enjoy it. I am not a fan of the color on the walls in here, but my mother really loved it. And so, because I know that we weren't going to sell it or do anything with it, she put a gray with a brown. It's mothers, and we're grateful for her. But I would not have done this if we were getting prepared to sell this, right? But because we're going to be here for a while, I know that in 3 or 4 years, we're going to repaint it all anyway, and then I'll choose the colors, maybe. Um, I tend to like her to be happy. But those are things that you want to consider. You want to be honest with yourself. Don't say, well, if this happens and the moon and the stars align like this and I'll have extra money. Don't just This is what I have. This is what I'm trying to do. How much of what I want to do can I accomplish with what I have? That's really the sum of what we're trying to figure out. And be as specific as you can. And always do not spend more than you are willing to lose. Do not spend more than you are willing to lose. Because in this market, as volatile as it has been over the last 5 or so years, nothing is guaranteed. No increases. The only thing you are sure of is that whatever the market is doing this month, it will not be doing next month. That's all we are sure of in the real estate markets right now. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. My phone number is 281-414-5709. You can email me at N like Nancy, V like Victoria Collins at keysres.com, or you can visit us online at www.keysres.com. That's it. Let's see. So in the chat, there is a question that says, describing my 1972 passed down house needing updates. Should you change structural maintenance outside of just modern maintenance updates? Okay, so by structural maintenance, I'm gonna assume that you mean adding square footage, moving walls, that kind of thing. That's what I'm going to assume that you mean. Um, so it depends. The answer will generally be it depends. And the reason I'm going to say that it depends is because it'll be, are you intending to live there and you want to make it more enjoyable for you to live there? I will almost always say yes in that instance. If I'm trying to make something that is my long-term residence easier for me to enjoy living there, I am always willing to spend my money on me, right? As is reasonable, especially if I know that I'm going to get to enjoy it. It's the reason why in this 1982 home, we built the addition. We added another 400, about another 700 square feet on it because it made it easier for my family to live in the home. Um, the house has a teeny tiny pantry, and we're getting ready to turn the wet bar that no one uses into a full. We're gonna close that pantry in. It looks and feels small, but has a huge yard. House will also be passed down within family. So then we are in similar situations then. Yes, I would say that if you have the budget to do the things that you want to do, and you can find reputable contractors and that you can trust,
Mhm.
that it would be and you plan to live there and you plan to enjoy it and it will not bankrupt you, and you may want to do it project by project. You don't have to build Rome in a day since you plan to be there. um I would say that it would be worthwhile and will more than likely add value. Square footage always adds value. Square footage, there's never a time where you add square footage and it does not add value. Adding a bathroom will always add value. Sometimes, like I wouldn't take away a bedroom to put in the bathroom. See what I'm saying? So there are some things that you can typically always expect to increase the value in your property. So if you plan to live there and you plan to enjoy the fruits of your labor, then I would say that some of those things would be worthwhile edits. And you can always give me a call and we can talk about some specifics and because I'm talking as generally as I can. And we can say, yeah, this is a good idea. Maybe not in this market. Is that a good idea? Those kinds of things. Because sometimes there are certain things that will happen in a market that will make a certain improvement not be a good thing to do just because of timing. We went through a period where roofs were more expensive to put on. We went through a thing where fences were more expensive just because of the timing. And so if the timing is right, then it may be a good move. Okay, so Clifford, if you're ready, I'm a I'm gonna tag you in. Your mic is on. Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I'm gonna stop sharing
Okay.
and I'm gonna.
Let me put my screen up here and let's see. That's that. Can you see my screen, Nikki?
Not yet.
Okay. I think Nia may need to tag me in now. Let me see how can I share the screen. Hold on. There. Let me come back up here. Share. What about Nikki? Nikki?
See your screen?
Okay, you got me?
Yes.
All righty, let's see. Let's see what we got here. One more step and we can keep moving. Boom. Okay, let me get y'all off to my show. There you go. Why is it I'm seeing your screen again? There we go. That's me adding value here. But I got you in the middle of my screen.
Well, we see you. Today we
Okay,
went over 5 key areas of a home.
yeah, okay. Okay, let's back out of that one. There we go. Okay, can everybody in? Can you hear me?
We hear you, we see you. We're good.
All right. I'm Clifford Joe with GI Inspections, and we're going to go into the home maintenance side of maintaining a home. A little bit about me, U.S. Army combat veteran. I did 2 tours in Iraq, 91, and I went again in 05. I became an inspector once I left the military. I'm also a realtor. I don't sell much real estate, but I like to see what's going on in the market. I like to keep my ear to the ground because what's going on the real estate side translates on the inspector side as well. I'm also an HVAC technician, study project management, this level 2 drone operation thing that they're making us get this license for. I'm also a master inspector. And the reason why I chose to become a master inspector is because the state of Texas, when you go and you take the exam, it's a pretty hefty exam, but it's only over the minimum state standard. So there's no law saying you can't learn more. And I recently became a 203K consultant. Loan officers will tell you about that if you choose to take out a loan to remodel your home. You will probably want to look into 203K home repair loan. So let's go ahead and get into it. Um, the maintenance of a home is extremely important. Poorly maintained homes, deferred maintenance, and even the use of unqualified tradesmen can lead to some costly repairs over time. And trust me, I see a lot of homes that I could tell whoever did this work did not know what they were doing, and they're putting the homeowner at risk. And most of the time, it's a safety risk on the electrical side. We'll go over 5 key areas of a home as well as a few others that need regular care and maintenance. These key areas, we're going to look at the roof, the foundation, the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC, and I added this one, so it's going to be 6. We're going to look at the grading around the home because that plays a lot into the overall condition of the drainage around your home and your foundation. So let's take a look at seasonal maintenance. If you're attending this class, Nia Murray is going to make sure you get this checklist, and she's going to also give you the copy of my book, the home maintenance book. It's a tool that every one of you should have. I believe that in order to maintain a home and you want to keep up the value of your home, it pays to maintain your home. As we just, Nikki was talking on the appraisal side, deferred maintenance can eat up the value of a home. Yeah, and then when you're selling it and you have all this deferred maintenance on that home, or you decide to stay there and you have all that deferred maintenance, it's become more costly and it's going to become more problematic because one issue is probably going to lead to 2 or 3 other costly issues if you don't maintain those homes. I'll give you an example. If your drain pan is filling up under your AC system and you choose to ignore it, now in most cases, there's a safety float switch that's installed, but say you choose to ignore it. Now that water is building up in that drain pan, it's making contact with the coil. It's at the bottom of the coil, so that's going to rust out. If it overflows, you're going to have damaged insulation, damaged wood soak framing members, and ceiling damage, possible electrical, depending on the flow of the water that's coming out of the drain pan, down to your drywalls, down to your floors. And that's a simple maybe $7,500, go out, blow the line out, just cost you thousands because you chose to not maintain that problem, not get in front of it. And another problem would also be mold. So maintenance is important. Don't ever skip it. Your home maintenance, these tasks can be done by the homeowners, such as, cutting the grass, changing out your air filters, testing your smoke alarm, even keeping your windows clean. You'd be surprised with that one, because sometimes even with these windows, these new windows with the double sealed, double energy efficient seals, if it goes bad and the window is dirty, you probably won't be able to tell for a while. And by the time you figure it out, it's been bad for a while. And now you got moisture intrusion. But again, we're going to focus on the issues that require the help of a professional, and even what looked like it may happen even if the work is done. When I see it, I can tell if the work has been done correctly. I'll say this before we go to the next slide. If you hire a professional to do the work on your home, say they're coming in to repair the foundation. Foundation work is a major deal. I would make sure that this person, this company is reliable, have a reputation that's a solid one as to doing quality work. Are they licensed? Are they insured? Another thing, when you're doing major work to your home, if the work requires having a permit pulled, make sure that there's a permit present on site. That's a key way of knowing if this person is going through the right steps, or they're just running a block with your money. Because unfortunately, we got some guys out there that just refuse to play by the rules. So these are key things I look at. I was just over in Montrose last Saturday. I was in Montrose, the house that we were doing an inspection on. I was doing the inspection. The engineer was doing looking at the foundation. Well, I discovered the house had been in a fire. As I'm looking through, I see again another area. The house had been in 2 fires. Nobody told the buyer. So little things like that, they add up, and all this was coming about during the renovation project. So the buyer, he was pretty heated, but hey, it's your house now. So maintenance and communication with the right people, it goes a long way. I'm looking at this house here. This was on the roof, and they used a spray sealant to as a repair. The proper way to repair this is to replace the boot flashing and the area so it won't leak again. Also note make note of this. I'm sorry. A repair is not a permanent fix, especially when it comes to a roof. If you do a repair on the roof, and I can say this, even a couple of shingles or around one of these vents, monitor that area, because it may leak again, because you compromise the original roof structure. So when you go in, you open those areas, now you got to contend with the possibility of that area leaking again. Will it always leak? No, it may start leaking somewhere else, but those repairs are only temporary. So you have to always look and make sure that you're on point. Also, these 2 vents, in my opinion, they're too close together. But I looked it up in the code and they accept it, But then till you look at the one to the right, it's too far, it's too close up on the ridge. All of this, and as a matter of fact, this was a flip house. So again, when you're bringing in repairs to a home, make sure the people who are making the repairs know what they're doing, because poor repairs can lead to some big issues later. And later, it's going to cost you in the pocket later. I'm looking at a thermal image of this home. This was out in Bay Cliff. This picture was taken last Wednesday or Thursday. I was out on an inspection in Bay Cliff. And that high area just inside that square in the center of the screen, that whole area is missing insulation. When I got on the roof, I could see where they had done some repairs. So when the roof repairs were made, no one went in and re-added some more insulation. They just left it as is. So now you have a problem because that part of the house is not going to cool as efficiently as it can. Just by having the missing insulation, a big problem. Insulation is needed to keep your house cool because we're in a region where we operate our ACs hard. And when I say hard, we go hard for about 9, 10 months out of the year. Then maybe 2.5 months, we kind of use our ACs intermittently because we don't really have winters out here. So that's going to be a problem. And now you're overusing the AC system. And if you're overusing the AC system, you're going to have a high utility bill and you run the possibility of damaging the unit because it's constantly being ran. And all of this is stemming from lack of insulation. I'm saying all of this because I want you guys to see how this ties together, how all this ties together, how your house structure is tied as a unit, how the whole envelope operates. And it makes a difference in the long run. I'm looking at this house. I'm looking at the roof flashings at the drip edge, and they all warped and bent out. This homeowner had they had the roof replaced. And when they had the roof replaced, they took a shortcut. Instead of replacing the flashings, they used the old flashings at the drip edges, at the eaves and the rates. Those flashings, you see how they're starting to bump and warp lift? That's where your moisture is going to get in at those edges. That's where your pests are going to get in. So I always tell anyone, when you're getting a roof replaced, once they strip that roof off, look at the decking on your roof. If it's rotted or soft in some areas, go ahead and pull that out. Get it replaced. Then that way you get it replaced the proper way. So again, look at your roofing companies. Check around when it comes time to replace your roof. Anytime there's a storm that comes through here, go outside and look at your roof. We get a little hail come through here, go outside and look at your roof. Trees hanging over your roof, swaying in the wind to get knocked over, go outside and look at your roof. As a matter of fact, now insurance companies are calling out inspectors to look at the roof. They don't even get into the inspection side anymore. They leave that to the homeowner. So these are things you
And
want to
canceling policies.
Yes, and they are canceling policies for little things like this. So always take your time, do it right the first time, and check the roofing companies. Matter of fact, I was in a class. We did a workshop, Nia and I, that was over at the YMCA over off of Griggs. One of the attendees had an issue about a roof, and the roofing company wanted to charge her close to $40,000 to replace her roof, which I thought was absurd because I'm looking at I do a lot of inspections, so I saw it. I said, no, you need to call around for some more people. That's not going to be the number for you. They had already had everything laid out for her, and she found someone that did it for like maybe 15,000. Everything that roofing company, the $40,000 roofing company did, they wanted to do. This other company did it for less. Everything, they did it for less, and they did it all in one day. So when you choose your contractors, also get everything in writing. No more of this verbal stuff. Get it all in writing. That helps you. That helps you in the long run. But see, like this, when I'm looking at this roof, you got corrosion issues that's gonna come up. You got rust that's gonna come up, pest intrusion, moisture intrusion. Just off of that, not it's just little things make a big difference. So we got to pay attention to that. We just talked about trees hanging over the roof. Especially homeowners, every now and then you may get that notice from the insurance company and they see those trees because all they're going to do, they're either going to do one from what they call Eagle View, or they're going to send somebody out to your house and they're going to put a drone up there and look at it. And if you have any branches that are hanging over that roof, cut them down, excuse me, cut them down, and we're going to come back out and look at it. And they're going to give you so much time to do it. But they don't want to keep a policy. When I say they, meaning the insurance company, they don't want to insure your home with the possibility of that tree branch going through the roof because they know now that's a problem that should have been taken care of a long time ago. Now it's a hazard because it's going to cost me to get the roof repaired the right way. And hopefully I don't have any electrical problems or some serious structural damage around my roof. So that little job right there of removing the tree branches can save you thousands and a big headache in the long run. Foundation. This tree was extremely close to the home. It was less than 15 feet away. I don't think that was a good 3 feet. So all those tree roots are growing under that home, and it's causing the foundation to shift. In this case, the close proximity to this home, I would have cut that tree down a long time ago. Not only would have cut the tree down a long time ago, I would have went on ahead and tried to put a barrier in to stop the tree roots from growing anywhere near that foundation. I mean, what you have there is there in place. If you cut that tree down, take it down to the stump, you might as well leave the roots there because those roots are now supporting that foundation. If you start yanking them out, you're going to cause more problems because now the house is settling again. It's settling in soil that has a bunch of voids in it where the tree roots were. So always hire a professional when it comes to doing a job like this. And it's just not cutting the tree down. It's the actions after the tree has been removed that's going to be needed as well. And it's going to need some monitoring because if you don't watch it, you may have a problem with pests like termites. Sometimes you have other little issues like little bees that like to stay in wood. I can't think of the name of them, carpenter bees. You'd be surprised at what's out there. So this tree, in my opinion, this tree should have been cut down a long time ago. There was no reason for it to stay that close to the home that long. What I'm looking at here is a settlement crack. This settlement crack is a common one based on the age of the house. This house was built in the late 70s, no, late 60s, early 70s. I expect to see some settlement cracks in the house. We're in Texas. At some point, you're going to get some issues with some settlement cracks. Not the end of the world. What I would say about this settlement crack is there's no separation in the crack. It's just a settlement crack. But I will say this and bring us up to speed as of today. We've been, a month without rain? When I'm walking my yard and I'm hearing crunchy grass under my feet, that's usually a telltale sign that my soil is extremely dry. If I look at the grass that runs upside to my foundation of my home, if there's a gap along that edge, it's because it's dehydrated. So if I'm not getting it down here, up here at the top, I know I'm not getting it down at the bottom where the clay is. And the soil composition is mostly clay here in this region. So if this clay soil starts to contract, you're going to start having foundation problems. So if I was a homeowner, I would make sure that my drainage, not my drainage, my soil is steady at a constant state to where it's not too wet and mushy and it's not dry. Keeping it at a constant is important because at a constant, this is where your foundation is sitting on. Something that's constant. It's not going these wild expansion contractions because that will definitely accelerate the life of your foundation, all of that wild movement. So here in Texas, very seldom I will see a home at this age that had no foundation problem. And I think I've been doing this since 2010. I may have seen two. That's it. But those homeowners really took care of their home. So it's all doable. It's just up to you, the homeowner, as to how far you want to go when it comes to maintaining the home. This is what I'm looking at. We call that a chip at the corner. It's just we see this is all the time. Common chips in the foundation. Anytime we see a foundation that's chipping at the corners, it's not the end of the world. What we see is it's common for the foundation to chip at the corners. So when you see that chipping take place, just resurface those areas. You don't want it to chip too far to where it could possibly fall off, because now you're gonna have to go back and replace the whole thing. So if you see the settlement cracks starting, resurface those areas. If you resurface those areas, and look out, you can go out to your house now, you probably see it. Look at your neighbor's house. Look at the house to your left or right, across the street, you'll see it. And just get in front of it. It's not really what we call a serious foundation issue. It's more cosmetic because it's in the corners. But you can always get in front of it. Look at your home like when you're doing your spring cleaning, or when you go into the fall, you're doing your fall cleaning. Look at your foundation. It makes a big difference. Also, you want to make sure those areas are taken care of if you're a homeowner and you're looking to sell your home, because any inspector, he's going to call it out. And then you'll have a potential buyer wanting to buy that home. And if he doesn't thoroughly explain what that chipping is to a homeowner or to a home buyer who doesn't know, they're thinking you have major foundation issues and it may affect the deal to your home. Attic framing member, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but I'm looking at this, let me go back. What I'm looking at, where this arrow is pointing, this end brace here is warped. So it's warped because the foundation was worked on. See, when you work on your foundation, you start lifting your home, that lift goes all the way up to your attic and on up to your roof. So you have to monitor how far you're moving that foundation, and you have to go in and look at what you're doing in your attic space. This one in particular was funny because when I explained it to the homeowner, they were trying to tell me there's nothing wrong. I said, you don't see all the stress on this bend here? Eventually that's going to snap. And it's an easy repair, but you have to have the right people who know what they're doing make the repair. No, that's not a I'm going to do it myself type of job. That's the job that'll get you hurt, because once you cut that piece, that stress, that energy has to be released, and you don't want to be around it when it does. Attic insulation. Again, as a matter of fact, this is the same house. They went in and they didn't add insulation to the house. They did some work on the house. You can see up here where the homeowner did some work here, but the contractors didn't put any attic insulation in. So now you're going to have an AC system that's constantly running because there's nothing in place to protect the living area from the heat from entering those spaces. So you're constantly running your AC. And again, constantly running your AC to reach your comfort level, eventually it's going to go out. It's going to go out faster than if you had insulation. Typically, you want your insulation rated at an R19, and you want your insulation to be at least 6 inches deep, because that makes a big difference. If you ever had any moisture intrusion, like a plumbing leak in the attic space, look at that insulation once you make the repair, because that matted and cluttered type insulation is not moving thoroughly. It's not thoroughly insulating that area, and that's gonna, it may be a small area, but you're gonna discover you're gonna have some discomfort in those areas as far as this room is hotter than normal, and that's what we don't do. Again, same house. It was just like a domino effect. There's a way when you do wiring in your home, and I read one of the comments where a young lady said she was thinking of doing some work in her home. When you're doing work in your home, such as electrical, so I could tell this was not done by a professional, because they would have known, one, this junction box just shouldn't be resting on the floor like that. And your wiring, your Romex wiring, there's a way that you want that in an orderly fashion, the way you want to install and mount it. So that told me whoever did the electrical work in here didn't do a good job. And as a matter of fact, this house in particular ended up with some, they double tapped on a lot of the breakers outside the home. These are the things that will get you, when you hire the wrong people to do a job, it can be a problem later. And this is a serious safety hazard, because you're overheating your switches and the box. What happens if a fire breaks out? So you always want to make sure you hire the right people to do the job. Make sure those if it requires a license, make sure there's a license. Insurance, make sure they have insurance. Bonding if they need it, make sure it's there. All of that is in place to protect you. This was a home, and this is what I'm saying. This is we go in. Some of our houses have the switches under the sink in the kitchen where we can turn a light on. We can turn on the dishwasher, and in this case, the dishwasher and the food waste disposal. But this is under the kitchen sink, and there's no cover plate here. So what happens if I touch this and there's no cover plate? My hands are wet, and I'm turning on the dishwasher, or I'm turning on the food waste disposal. Sounds crazy, but it's actually a shock hazard. So it's those little things. I mean, a cover plate for that is probably at the hardware store less than $1, if that much. But those little things mean a lot. And there's little safety issues that got ignored. This house, sometimes go outside and look at your house. Under your meter, there is a rod that's in the ground with a clamp and a wire that's tied to that meter with your service panel. You want to make sure you get those in order, because what happens is this house is not grounded. And if you have a poorly grounded house, if you get a power surge in this area, you're gonna have a problem. A power surge, you're gonna have you're probably gonna lose some of your electronic devices. You may fry your television. You may, do something to your microwave, or you may little cell phone, little charger may get fried. You just never know. Depends on how much of a current is gonna move through your house without being discharged into the ground. Look at your ground rod. When you look at that ground rod, kind of grab it. See if it's easily movable. With this dry soil that we have, it probably is. So it's something to look at. Make sure that clamp that holds that wire onto that rod, make sure it's not loose. Little things like that, can protect you where you're not tearing up your unit. Well, not tearing up your unit, tearing up your home. I'm sorry, I have text message coming through. Water heater. Always hire the right people to do the job. There's a number of things that, like when you hear your water heater starting to knock, especially if you have a traditional cylinder-shaped water heater, when it's getting ready to go out, you will know. If it's gas, you're gonna hear it knocking. You're gonna hear like a underwater popping sound. That's what we typically hear. Another, like if it's electric, on the electric water heater, you have it's two heating elements. Typically on the electric water heater, before you get a lot of mineral deposit buildup, you'll get one of those elements that'll go out. We never know which one it is until you unscrew it and look at the one that's bad. But in this case, the guy went in and did the water heater. Make sure you have the right parts to do the job, because he didn't have the right parts. It resulted in a leak. Not only did it result in a leak, the drain pan, which is under here, did not have a drain line. So where was the water going? That drain pan filled up, overflowed, and it just pretty much ruined the ceiling in that home. That leak was that bad, and that was a huge drain pan that was placed there. But nobody got there in a timely manner, and I just went ahead and just shut the AC off. Well, not the AC. I shut the water off to the home and drained all the lines. I did it as a courtesy, because why let it go any further than what it is? Always hire the right people to do the job. Always make sure if there's a license involved, make sure they present the license. They have to have the insurance, get the insurance. Make sure all of that is in place. And if you agree to a job, get it in writing. Check your credentials, check that person's credentials. Always check. Never go just by word of mouth. Do your homework, because the owner of that company may send the A team out to work on your neighbor's house. It may send the D team out to work on your house. You never know. This is a water leak. I will say this, in our kitchens and in our bathrooms, it's not unusual to have a water leak at the drain line under here. A lot of times it's not this drain line. A lot of times that water leak is coming from the faucets. The fixtures are just dated. The gasket that holds it in place, or the seals that hold them in place, they're just dated, and they start to drip. If you open your cabinets, your vanity in the kitchen, and you get that musty smell, that's usually because it's a leak. And just replace, if you trace it down to the fixture, you can tell where it's coming from. And the reason why you can tell where it's coming from, once you got the water running, look up under there with a flashlight. You'll see where the drip is coming from. Usually, if it's at the sink, is where it's connected to this, where the pipe is connected to the sink. If it's at the fixtures, is usually where the fixtures are mounted to the vanity, and it's common, and it's an easy fix. This is what, if you got the right tools, it's a weekend warrior job. As homeowners, we're going to start replacing our HVAC systems, and I don't know who did this one, but just so happened I was there looking at it, and that black piece down here, I don't know if you see my cursor, but that's a burner. And it has the red tag resting on the burner. And to the right over here, this is that's your warranty papers. So if the homeowner decide to fire this system up, he's going to burn that little safety tag that's there, and he's going to pretty much burn up his warranty. So little things like this, make sure that attention to detail. Attention to detail is important, because what's going to happen is, hopefully they took heed to the report and took those items out, because the homeowner will not have a warranty if you left it like that. If you left those documents in place and fired that heater up, you don't have a warranty anymore. Again, on the AC, this little area where my cursor is moving, there's a leak right there. It's a small leak, and you can see in this blackened area the condensation that's building up. This is why you keep that AC system serviced at least twice a year, because that small leak is producing condensation that's going to deteriorate the material used to seal that together. That's going to be a problem later. And what's going to happen is, if you don't get it in repaired, you're going to have rooms that are not cooling properly, and with that condensation in place, you're going to have possible mold. So you always want to get in front of those little items. Gutters. Gutters are very, very important to a home. I cannot stress that enough. You always want the water to flow away from your home. And I see sometimes you'll go to a home and you'll see where the homeowner put the splash block facing, with the open end facing toward the foundation. That's wrong. You want that water to flow away from the home. You always want to keep your gutters clean and free of debris, because at this top picture up here, that water is pooling in those areas because it can't drain out. If it overflows, it's going to start doing damage to your fascia board. That's where your the back of the gutter is attached to. On top of that, if it gets in there, then it's going to start to get underneath that, the soffit, and it's going to start doing damage there. Now you're going to have what's called a dry rotting problem. And then now you're going to take the gutters down to replace those parts, and make sure there's no dry rot, make sure there's no termites, because if it's been like that for some time, you will have a possible termite problem there. So down at the second picture here, we're missing a splash block. No splash block, the water is just coming out and pooling right there by the foundation. Remember, you want all that water to wash away from the foundation. Nothing pooling near the foundation. The mission is to protect the foundation at all costs. Always protect your foundation. Let's see. This is range, I don't think we had what was this? This is the range. Sometimes your little knobs on these ranges, they go bad. They go bad sometimes. Sometimes you can't read the dial tone on them. But when they go bad, they tend to fall off. You always want to make sure replacing those in a timely manner. Because what happens when you get one, it breaks, and you just, okay, we can just fix it. We glue it back, it breaks again. And then you get to the point where you don't have the finger strength to push that in and turn it, and it got gas going off and it's not lighted. Now you got gas in the home. So you always want to make sure these knobs are operational. Poorly operated stoves can lead to a possible house fire. So you always want to make sure when they wear out, going down there to the hardware store, get you some new ones. You can actually go online and get them. You can just type in the type of range you have, and you just need the knobs for them. You can go to Amazon. Amazon probably ship them to you within a day or two. Plumbing. I would say with this one, always use the right material for the right job. The fixtures are not rated for the bathroom. This is actually rated for the kitchen. So I was wondering why, at this particular home, why it took forever to fill that tub, because that fixture was not rated for a tub. It was rated for a kitchen. So you have to know when you, again, know what you're buying, get the right people to do the job, because just because it looks nice, it was in your budget, but it turned out to be the wrong part. And until they go in and make this repair and get it up to par, you're going to continue having low water pressure, taking forever. It took almost 45 minutes to fill that tub. No, correction. It took almost 25 minutes to fill that tub, something that usually take about 15 minutes, if that long. So I knew we had a problem there. Our garage doors. Keep the rollers and the tracks, keep them lubricated, because as the home settles, there's going to be some movement where the garage will be out of square, and it'll start what we call sticking. Well, when it sticks, you still have areas like this where that stress is being applied by that garage door motor. It's pushing down or pulling up. But usually when it's pushing down and it's catching that stress there, it's going to cause this piece up here to buckle. And when it does, the garage is not going to shut. You're going to leave the house, and when you come, you're thinking you hit the garage door to close, and it's closing, and you drive off, and then when you hit that stress point again, it's going to kick back. It's going to raise up. So always keep the rollers on your garage door lubricated. Then you can use a gel type of WD-40 sells a gel type of spray that you can use, and it's an easy fix. But if it's out of square, get a garage specialist out there to look at it. Don't try to align it yourself, because you may throw it further out of alignment. Appliances. What we're looking at is this cap here, and the water is overflowing. That's coming from the dishwasher. What's happening is underneath the sink, you have a hose that's connected. It's a drain line that's connected to the food waste disposal, to the dishwasher, to the food waste disposal. It should be hanging on the hooks behind the sink in the kitchen. If you leave it resting on the floor, or the cabinet floor, it's going to start to collect food and debris. It's going to start backing up like this one did. And the water is going to, in this case, blow into the sink. It's going to discharge into the sink area. So you always want to have the open end of this cap pointed toward the sink. If you point it outward toward the counter, the water is going to come out and it's going to end up going over the counter and onto the floor. So you want to control where that water discharges to. Termites, there's a number of them. You got termites in the attic space up here where you see my hand. This top left pick, that's termite tunnels that are outside. This bottom pick here, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4. There's another one, 5. I'm looking at 5. You have to look close at it. There's 5 termite tunnels that are just beneath the paint. They were eating through the sheetrock. The reason that, and reason why I'm harping on this one, because this is the fireplace off to the right. When the roof was replaced, someone was supposed to go back and put the cap on the fireplace. They didn't. So it's open to water and everything else, and they got in. This area here, this is inside the garage of a home. So I want to explain this one. On the other side of this wall, the homeowner extended the patio. He extended the patio, but he pitched it to, it was not pitched correctly, it was pitched toward the home. So every time it rained, you had water collecting right at that wall, and it leaked into the garage area. So now all your framing members in this area around that bottom seal and your studs, they're wet. So you just made a home for a termite. And this had been like that for some time because that was a nice sized termite mound. And it's going to cost them a lot more. I think when I talked to that buyer, there were termites elsewhere in that house too. But you wouldn't have known it until you start tearing the walls down. But this was so obvious you couldn't miss it. If you ever see this in your house, you got mold and everything in your house, get out. Get out, take care of that. There's no need for you to start breathing that stuff in because when you have mold in your house, you risk the chance of having respiratory problems. And this was something due to, again, this is tied around the AC system. And you see, we talk about the AC system a lot because you got a lot of moving parts that's to your home that's tied to that AC system. This home in particular, the drain pan had been filling up for some time. And this was a rental property. The manager of the property, I guess he came in, just half did a job every time he showed up, but he never got it right. And the thing is, I was able to smell it the moment I walked in the house. This was a closet. It was in a bathroom, and it was in another area. I want to say near the patio because it had just started to spread through the home. Mold issues. And the guy who was renting that unit, he worked from home. So he was sitting in there all day breathing this stuff in. So when you, especially if you work from home, definitely want to get the stuff checked out. This is the flooring. What happened here, I say again, hire the right people for the job. Because if you look along this edge here, that's the old flooring that's in this home. They didn't pull up the old flooring. They just started laying new flooring over the old flooring. So eventually this, and the homeowner called me to look at the flooring because she said it didn't look right. Well, that's the reason why. She said it didn't feel right. Well, it didn't feel right because it wasn't installed correctly. So you got all these bumps and lumps in it because some of this flooring tile that was used, it was removed in some areas and kept in other areas. So it's just uneven all across the board. So this is what happens when you get the wrong people out there because we want to save a few dollars. And I get it. We want to save our money. But sometimes you got to get up off of it. You got to give it up. Pay the right people to do the job. You sleep a lot better at night. Energy rating. If you ever want an energy rating done to your home and give you a breakdown of where you're losing energy to your home, go to this website. It's www.energy.gov. This is something we're really behind at in America. We're really behind on conservation when it comes to energy. We'll tear a home down, just build a new one, or just let it rot out. But overseas, over in Europe, they've been on this stuff for like forever. They've been on it since the late 60s, early 70s, and we're just catching up. This is where you save your money. This is where you get tax breaks from the government. This is where you buy your appliances and you turn in the appliances, and that's how you're gonna get your little rebates. These are little tips that help you along the way when you become, for those who are homeowners in this class, and for those who are about to become homeowners. Every little thing counts. It's a little different, but I always put this out. Any veterans, if you know of any veterans over 60 years old, and they're needing some modifications done to their home so they can move about freely, you want to look into the HISA program. And this is a federally funded grant that's up to $6,500 for a veteran who's in need of home improvements, like to the bathroom, kitchen, driveways, and the ramps. Even some veterans who are just disabled and not 60, they may need that. And what they do is they go in, like I said, they do the kitchen, bathroom, driveways, they add ramps because these are common areas that you're gonna be. Now, what they won't cover is like it's listed, they ain't gonna cover new construction, they won't cover walkways to the exterior of the building. They're not giving you a spa or hot tub. They're not gonna put a decking on your patio or the back. They're not gonna redo all of that because those are considered luxury. But if you can, you got your phone out, I'm gonna leave this up for a second. Go ahead and take a picture of that website. And that way, if you know anybody that may need help and they're a veteran, start there. You'd be surprised at what the VA got set aside for those guys and those ladies too. Hopefully everybody got that photo. I'm gonna go to the next slide. And again, in conclusion, we talked about the roof, the attic, the foundation, the drainage, the plumbing, and the electrical. So these are key areas of your home. And even when you get those maintenance books, Neil's gonna make sure you get it. And you're gonna get that spring and fall sheet that you need for when it comes to inspecting your home, little things you need to look for. All of that pays off in spades if you read it. I say again, all of it pays off in spades if you read it. And my contact information, my direct number is 832-887-8711. You can email me at joeservices0339@gmail.com. That's my Trek license number, 202052. You can check me out on Facebook at GI Inspections PLLC. And I highly recommend you look at that Facebook page because some of the things you find out there in the field on the inspection side, you're like, wow, this is what they're doing out here. This is what we're looking at. And again, you could tell when the work was done by a professional. And if you look at it, you can learn from a lot from just looking. So you will know when someone comes to work on your house, hey man, I don't think that's done right. Or hey, this is not looking too hot. Show me how you did that. Why did you do it that way? Ask questions too. If the contractor get mad because you have asking questions, too bad. You taking my money, so answer my question. It helps a lot. So that pretty much concludes everything for me. Nia, if you can hear me, anybody got any questions?
There was one question that was in the chat, and then I want to also get to another question that was emailed to me prior to.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if this is more for you or for Nikki.
Nikki answered that one, but
She
I
did.
was looking at it for Erica.
Yeah, describing my 1982 fast down house needing updates. Should change structural maintenance outside of just should you change structural maintenance outside of just modern maintenance updates?
Well, I mean, I wanted to address what Nikki told her. Nikki told her everything varies, and it's true because every house is different. But I will say this: this is look at your budget first. If your budget does not allow you to adequately add a room, don't do it. Because I've seen so many people go and they do an addition and they don't tie the new foundation in correctly to the old foundation. So the people who know how to do it the right way, they're going to charge you for it. So you want to make sure you have your budget in place. So if budget becomes an issue, I say stay within what's under the roof. That could save you a lot. If you try to move a wall here or there, if it's under the roof, it saves you a lot. But if you don't have the funds and you're adding rooms, make sure they know what they're doing because I've seen a lot of them where when they're not done correctly, that's the first thing to go is that foundation because it's not properly tied into the original foundation, nor is the new structure properly tied into the old structure. So when it starts to settle, you start to get that movement. And when you get that movement, if it breaks far enough, you start to have your moisture intrusion. So even with your electrical, sometimes we know our houses are older, 1970s, 70s home, 72. I would look at the last time the electrical was updated, because you want to update your electrical every 25, 30 years. Because the newer systems that are out there now, they actually operate more efficiently. So sometimes when you see a person, they go in a contractor rewire the house, he rewire the house, put new fixtures in, but he won't add the new box. So it's kind of like, well, now you got one side of the system that's working more efficiently than the other side. And remember, this whole system has to work together. Outside, my siding, all my windows and doors. What do I have damage in those areas? Do I have damage to my siding? Get those areas repaired. My roof. I would start at the roof and slowly work my way down to each phase, down to the ground. And that's how I know where I'm working, what I need to have done, and what's priority and what can wait. I would not start on the inside of a house making repairs if the outside is not adequate, because all you're doing is double working. To me, if you have a roof leak and you're going in and you're making all these repairs let's say repairs, but updates to your house. And once you start making all the updates to your house and you got moisture intrusion coming in, it's not going to be a pretty day when you start seeing mold develop because of that roof leak. And it may be a small one starting out, but then it's a big one later. Appliances, like I said, we talk about appliances. Turn those rebates in. Fill out your warranty paper. You got a new washer and dryer. Fill those warranty papers out and turn them in, because you will be surprised. It's like buying a new TV. Fill those warranty papers out. You'll be surprised. That'll happen.
Okay. Trying to make sure that I don't have any questions online either.
Nia,
There was another, yes,
I
ma'am.
said something that Clifford made me think about that I needed to correct. I said every time you add square footage, it will increase your value. It will only increase your value if done properly. No one should be able to say, "Woo, that's an addition," when you have added on to your property.
I mean, it happens. I was in Meyerland, did a house. They actually bought the house while the addition was being added, and it was a 2-story addition. But when you walk in, when you look at the stairs leading up to the second floor, they were shifted.
Mhm.
So, and that's the settlement process, and you can see where the structure was pulling away. And I've seen it all. Every time I see that, even Sunnyside South Park, where you go and you do an addition to a house, and you don't tie it in together, it'll look good, but it'll start pulling away. It's the main house going to the left and new part going to the right.
To
Erica
the
said,
appraiser,
listen,
it won't even look good.
yeah, it look good floating away too. Doing its own thing. Windows gonna start cracking because of the stress of the outer square. You have that issue. Like I say, you got moisture intrusion. You got moisture intrusion big enough, you'll have pest intrusion and rodents, squirrels in the attic type of thing. Erica said to both, everything needs to start from scratch, which is true. I need to update plumbing, electrical, grounded electrical foundation. Well, plumbing, grounded electrical foundation, because the neighbor's oak, I'm assuming oak tree has shifted. I would, Erica, have you
You probably
asked?
should need to get an inspection first. She probably should get an inspection or something done first before she just starts shooting
spending money,
money,
yeah.
just start spending money out there. And then two, also, you don't want to hire a contractor and tell him what you think needs to be done, because he'll probably be like, "Oh yeah, you sure do. Let me go ahead and
Yeah.
just add this and keep adding this and keep adding this." And at least that way, if you get an inspection done, you can kind of at least, if not do it in parts, but know when you're going now to talk to a contractor, that inspector said you need to do X, Y, and Z, and not 1, 2, and 3. Don't let them just kind of tell you, "Oh, well, yeah, we need to do this, and your structure and your foundation and whatever." It's like, no, I got my inspection report. They didn't say anything was going on with that. So,
Let's just stick within the parameters.
yeah,
No.
yeah, that
We
should
see
be some kind
that.
of indication.
Um, sometimes I always believe try to be diplomatic. Let me approach my neighbor. Hey, your tree kind of shifting over my way, and let's see what we can work out together as neighbors. And we can't work anything out. Okay, let me go ahead and put a root barrier in here, cut these trees down that's infringing on my property. When he come outside or when they come outside and start talking about it, it's like, well, hey, I have to protect my investment over here. I think that's only fair. I did try to talk to you. So, and I only say that because in reality, my mother, her neighbor had a tree that was actually growing on like it kind of grew into the fence, the gate. We got the mesh type fence back in the day, and it was leaning towards my mother's neighbor house. But my mother said, "Well, let's get together and let's cut it down." No, I don't want to do that. Neighbor said she didn't want to do it. Well, when Harvey blew through, guess where the tree fell? Well, actually, it was leaning toward my mother's house. That's why he wanted to cut it. But the wind blew it, and it blew on the neighbor's house. But she said, "Hey, we wanted to work with you, get it cut. Let's get it cut down." But since it was like in that right there in the cut where it was in the fence, it's like both of y'all. Let's work together. And so you'd be surprised. Sometimes you get a lot of cooperation, and sometimes you don't.
Both of you kind of touched a little bit on generators, but I know that was a question that was asked, that was emailed when someone registered. When somebody's looking even to spend money on a generator or even thinking about a generator, what should they look for? And then like, what's a good source for them to go to determine if a generator is a good size, if it's a good fit for them, if a home can withstand the capacity of having a generator even attached to it, or should they get one of the ones that you just kind of crank out and put the gas in it and start it up? Like, where do you start?
Me personally, I'm old school. I man, let me go out here and crank this thing up. And I need the kitchen, the living room, and a bedroom. That's the only areas I need to have power to. Everything else is secondary. Now, some people, like my mother's house, um, we got to put the hot in. So I can plug again. I'm going old school. I'm not buying a generator from the big guys. That's me. I like having control of what's going on. So I can go get a generator. I know the size I need for her house, but I'm gonna make it comfortable for her. Now you have to bear in mind if I think that as far as the value of it, I don't know the value as far as what it brings on the appraisal side, but I know from the inspector side that when I have a house and I go out and do the inspection on it and I see it, and I just say, well, hey, because that Trek inspectors do not inspect generators, but we make mention of it, you know what I mean? And we just say, well, the home has a generator. I would recommend that you talk to the owner, find out when it was serviced last, when was it installed, what, any issues, just give them the information. I would probably ask the homeowner.
I mean,
And
just from the consumer side, I have no intention of selling my house whatsoever. I just need to shop for a generator. Where do I start to even look for it? Or like, what do I?
So
what's your
my
budget like?
favorite
That would be the
tool,
first question I would ask myself.
my favorite tool if you're getting ready to purchase a generator is Generac has a tool online that will ask you questions about your the size of your home, how many appliances do you want to do you want to have active, how many lights, it'll kind of let you plug in what you would want to function during that time. And then it will tell you for a standby generator. Because see, Clifford is old school and he want to crank her up. I am not going out there. I need that automatic transfer switch to say clunk and that thing say boom. That's what.
Yeah, yeah.
And so for our home, because we have these 6 homeschooled kids, and
Oh,
because I office here, um, I mean, for sure, we need more of our home to function than
mhm.
than the average home. And so when we were looking at it, um, we ended up going with a 22 kilowatt hour. Now, some of the things we're saying, oh, you need much more, but here's the thing I want you to consider, especially if you have managed to keep things up to date. Things don't pull power like they used to. Your television uses a fraction of the power that that big tube thing used to pull. You know, you have a gas
it-
dryer, it's not going to run the same electricity as an electric dryer. So, you know, those are the things that when you're plugging it in, you want to consider, do you have a gas water heater or an electric water heater? You know, so those things that we think are pulling electric energy don't always pull as much energy as we think. And then if you, because when we did ours, we contract too, you know, we do general contracting too. So we had initially um had another company that was supposed to put in the generator. And we got into the process, and on August 18th, now see this tell you how traumatic this was because I know the
Okay.
date. On August 18th, they told us call CenterPoint and have them turn off the power, and we'll have you back on at the end of the day. Fine. Call CenterPoint, turned off the power. When they did all they needed to do, they said call CenterPoint, have them turn the power back on. Fine. We call CenterPoint. CenterPoint says, where is your permit? At that
Mm,
point, we fired that company and we took over the general contracting ourselves. And we went ahead and went through the process. But in that lapse, we were without power for a month because
Wow.
those things that they were supposed to have done before we ever got to turn that power off had not been done. So there was time, and we're in Missouri City, which is a blessed place to do permitted work. It's a blessed place. And so it took time to actually get the permit approved, to have the different inspections, and there are specific things that CenterPoint is looking for in order to restore your power. And
Mm.
if we had just, if it had been done properly, we would have been without power for 4 hours total. But
Mm.
so, you know, you want to make sure, look, as contractors, I always trust us. I trust us more than any other contractor.
I
At
yes,
least for
believe
my
indeed.
that
own
one.
house, because I know that we're going to follow the rules. Where, you know, some municipalities may have shortcuts if you don't really know the area you're working in. So you, when I say find contractors you trust, not only who are good at their job, but who understand the area where they are doing the work and the rules in that place. Is the HOA going to get involved? Do you give us, is the city involved? Does the county have a piece? You want them to understand all the rules and regulations because you don't want to find yourself in a bind. I was so glad we didn't have
Without power for a
last
whole
month
month.
Wow.
because it was a
Yeah.
month.
Get your
Ask
hands ready, get
questions.
ready to crank that thing up. But they got some generators now, they're remote start, not remote start, they just
We can remote start.
yeah, key started. I just, I always ask them because when I look at it from the inspector side, just protecting the homeowner, But yeah, permits are important. Y'all just heard it again. Permits, permits.
Mhm.
If it's required, get it. Don't skip. And I will tell you this: if you're going out doing work on your home, that where a permit is required, and the code enforcement officer drives by and see you doing that extensive work without the permit, they will fine you
Yeah.
And
and
shut
they
it
will
down.
halt your construction. So those little things are important. As a matter of fact, we're talking about Montrose. I was mentioning Montrose. That was another issue. That house had been in a couple of fires. The guys that were working on it, um, they didn't have the permit. They had the heavy duty dumpster out there, but they didn't have the permits. And this just happened, he had a nosy neighbor that came by and started telling everything else too. So, and sometimes that nosy neighbor helps. They did what? For real? When? And that, oh, okay. And then now my hunches or what I'm looking at on the inspection side, they're turning out to be true. They're
Mm.
turning out to be
Ask
true.
questions. Ask
Yeah,
questions. Ask questions. And if somebody doesn't want to ask questions, that's probably not the person or the contractor or whoever that you probably don't want to be doing work with. So,
right,
you know,
right.
If you're not comfortable and you get that little tingly on the back of your neck, telling you that something ain't right, something's probably not right, and just move on.
Run, Forrest, run.
Uh, right, run quick. I believe those are all the questions that we had in the chat, and we are also out of time for right now as well. Let me get you to stop your screen share. So with that being said, thank y'all very much for taking the time out this afternoon to join us, and for you to once again providing us with this information that we could share to the community about home maintenance, and increasing and potentially increasing the value of your home when it comes to renovations and upgrades and things of that nature. So, if there are currently any workshops that we do not offer that you all may be interested in, please take a quick moment to complete that survey at the end of the presentation so that we can kind of get more information or more insight about what it is that you all are needing or what you're looking for. We do appreciate you all continuing to support and come back and participate with our presentations. You are so very welcome. I
That may
will
be a little kid out here.
everyone. All right. Huh?
Y'all hear this little kid out here?
Uh-uh.
I don't know. They let somebody little kid run amok in this house.
All right. But yeah, so if there aren't any workshops that we don't currently offer and you all may be interested in, please reach out to us and let us know. All of the links and the resources that were discussed here today will be sent out along with a copy of the recording of this presentation, as well as a link to our YouTube page for that you can go back and watch any of the other previous workshops that we've had as well. We are here every other month. We used to do these every month, but now we're here every other month, the third Wednesday. So you have the opportunity to come back in maybe December, depending on what that schedule looks like for or how that week falls in December. We may or may not be having this presentation in December, so we may wait until January. It just kind of depends, and also on your availability too. So, but
Okay.
we'll let you guys know about that. Yes, sir.
I do want to do a presentation on 203K.
Okay.
And I think, if it's like looking at again notes, if you're doing a major move on the repairs on the house, I think that would probably be a better fit. That's just me, but I really want and explaining what it is doing these because that program is designed to protect the homeowner. Because when they call for what they call draw inspections, they before the contractor even get paid, they have to have that inspection.
Okay.
And if
Well, yeah.
if the work is not up to snuff, they don't get paid until it is. So that helps cut out a lot of garage clause.
Okay. Let's talk about that. And even potentially what does that do for your appraisal too when you're doing a 203K upgrades and updates?
See?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, cool beans. All right. You all have a wonderful remainder of the afternoon. Take care of yourselves. You stay safe. The next thing that we've got coming up next Tuesday, we've got our evictions and knowing your rights presentation on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we have our property tax exemptions, payment options, and payment arrangements. And then we have coffee and conversation with the City of Houston Department of Neighborhoods on Thursday, along with for the mortgage foreclosure, the home equity line of credit foreclosure, and reverse mortgage foreclosure on Tuesday. I'm sorry, on Thursday the 23rd as well, and that is via Zoom. I will send out a copy of the calendar for everyone to go back and take a look at, so that you can register for either one of those. But with that being
You're
said,
gonna send that to us too?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, it'll be included. All right. And your contact information will also be included on the email that I send out, along with your book, the maintenance tips, and the links for the other resources that you will provide it. So,
Okay.
all right. Thank y'all very much. All right. See y'all later. Have a good
Be
one.
safe out there. It's good seeing y'all again.
All right.